Hi, and welcome to this recorded version of the CFI's training and orientation presentation developed for Government of Canada Navigator Liaisons. This presentation was developed to support the individuals appointed to the liaison role by participating federal departments and agencies to the Research Facilities Navigator Initiative. Thank you for being a part of this important effort to enhance collaboration among the federal scientific community, other users of the Navigator website, and the more efficient use of federal research facilities. Today, we will tell you more about us, your partner in this initiative, the Canada Foundation for Innovation, or CFI, why we developed the Research Facilities Navigator platform, and a few key concepts and criteria for listing a research facility on the Navigator. We'll discuss responsibilities associated with your role as a liaison and go in-depth on the requirements of the research facility intake form, the onboarding process, knowledge which, after this presentation, you'll be able to use to help guide facilities through these important steps. We'll wrap it up with some resources and references to help you carry out your role. Let's start with a little about us, the Canada Foundation for Innovation. The CFI is a nonprofit corporation funded by the Government of Canada that invests in research facilities and equipment in Canada's universities, colleges, research hospitals, and nonprofit research organizations. We launched the Navigator in 2013 to help users from private, public, and nonprofit sectors locate and connect with publicly funded research facilities as a first step toward establishing research collaborations and partnerships. Today, the Navigator includes over 600 of Canada's top research facilities located in universities, colleges, and hospitals at work in 28 different sectors of application, from aerospace to ocean industries. The CFI is also now proud to welcome the addition of federal facilities to this exciting initiative. Our vision is to establish the Navigator as the essential directory of publicly funded Canadian research facilities. To help us achieve this goal, we will build our base of supporters and champions by demonstrating leadership in the industry research collaboration space, the value of the directory as a matchmaking tool, and our responsiveness to stakeholder interests and needs in relation to the Navigator. Some key concepts to know before we go further. A research facility, for purposes of the Navigator, is one that has the scientific knowledge, equipment, and ability to provide research services in a specific area of expertise. You'll also be hearing the term open for business. Research facilities profiled in the Navigator are generally accessible and open for business. That means they are prepared to engage in research collaborations with individuals and organizations from private and public and nonprofit sectors, both at home and abroad. The primary conditions for listing and maintaining a profile on their Navigator are that the research facility be located in or owned and operated by a department or agency or other institution of the Government of Canada, that the research services, expertise, equipment, and labs described in the facility profile are defined, operational, and accessible, that these same elements are available to business and users from all sectors, and that participating federal research facilities maintain and ensure the accuracy of all aspects of their profile and validate its content periodically. Let's move now to the liaison role. The Navigator liaison is more than an individual assigned to carry out key Navigator tasks. They are someone who is developing a broader understanding of the Navigator's purpose and can help rally and motivate facilities. And they're also an internal source of Navigator expertise, helping to share knowledge, advice, and good practices developed through their own experience working through the process with other facilities. This slide highlights some of the key Navigator liaison responsibilities. We already talked about the one at the top as serving as an internal champion and supporting internal promotional efforts. The next key responsibility concerns quality assurance and quality control, the review of the information that's submitted by facilities on the intake form. In this stage of the process, liaisons are reviewing the content of the intake form for completion and for adherence to guidelines and requirements specified for various fields. The next important liaison role is to serve as a point of contact for the CFI in Navigator-related matters, such as distribution of communications. And they're also going to be looked at as a point of contact on questions from research facilities themselves and federal officials who may want status updates regarding the participation of federal facilities by department or agency. A tip for the Navigator liaisons: to help keep track of all of this information for which you may be called upon, we suggest creating an Excel spreadsheet that can help you track the onboarding progress of your department or agency's facilities. Also include a column that will track the number of contacts your research facilities receive. You will, as a Navigator liaison, receive a copy by email of each contact form that's submitted to one of your facilities through the Navigator platform.
Let's take a look at the Navigator intake form and examine each section in detail. We will review instructions included in the form to help guide its completion, examine some sample entries, and provide tips and best practices to optimize each facility profile. Detailed instructions and explanations are included throughout the form to help guide the completion of each section. Please pay attention to the included guidelines, particularly when it comes to character length and number of entries per section. Taking the facility's address as an example, we've indicated that the full civic address is required as that information helps us generate a Google Map profile. The fields with a red asterisk are required fields and must all be completed to be posted on the Navigator. As we examine the form, you will note that only certain fields within sections are required, while some entire sections are optional. Not all fields in this form will display on the Navigator, as some information is used in the programming to help drive some features, such as searches. The blue fields are included for translation purposes. They can be left blank when completing the form in its original language of submission, but consider fields such as the facility name and website. As these are usually readily available content, they can be filled in both official languages at first completion to avoid any inconsistencies during the translation process. This is a screen capture of a sample edited profile submitted, where edits are highlighted in red. Starting with the first line, the name of the government, department, or agency has been pre-filled in your template to ensure the consistency of entries. For the name of the research facility, please ensure that the field contains only the name of the facility and not, for example, directorate information or department name. Note that facility names must be unique. This means that no two facilities should have the same name. Let's examine a scenario where several facilities exist within the same center and they do not have individual names to distinguish them. The first option is to consider merging them under one profile and to distinguish them under the Specialized Labs and Equipment section, where equipment is listed individually under each lab. For this option to be viable, content for the entire profile must be the same, such as the descriptions of what the facility does, its expertise, and research services. Also consider if the context can be the same for all facilities, or if they must be distinct for each. Look at the number of pieces of equipment. Is it extensive and too large to be included under one profile? In many cases, creating separate profiles, option B, will be the solution. In the example provided, each facility names begin with the Center for Biologics Evaluation, and the specialty follows in parentheses, NMR spectrometry, mass spectrometry, nanotechnology, etc. Content for the facility website URL should only include the link for the facility website, not directorates or general departmental websites. If none is available or exists, this field can be left blank and would simply not display on the site. Links other than for the facility website can be included in sections such as additional information or social media platforms. For government facilities, web pages are usually available in both official languages, but note that if the content is unilingual, the same link will be posted in both the English and French pages of the profile for the content to be available to all users. There are 4 contacts associated to each facility, and content for all 4 are required. Any queries concerning the research facility are sent to all 4 contacts. The names of the general and research contacts are made public in the facility's contact form, although email addresses and phone numbers remain hidden. None of the information about the Navigator Liaison or BCC displays on the site. The general contact is a specific person prepared to handle queries from business and other potential users. They can manage profile updates and work with the liaison on matters concerning the Navigator. The research contact is a person in the facility who is prepared to handle queries from business and other potential users. The general and research contacts can be the same person. This sometimes is the case in smaller facilities, but this option is not preferred, as if this person is unexpectedly away, it could cause delays in responding to queries. The Navigator liaison contact is you, a person assigned from each participating department or agency to fulfill roles and responsibilities related to the coordination and administration of federal facilities in the Navigator. Note that while there may be several people working together to serve the role, only one person should be listed in that role on all profiles for the department or agency. As a tip, we suggest that you pre-fill the section with your information before distributing the template to facilities. The blind copy contact should have knowledge of and familiarity with the research and operational circumstances of the facility, and be prepared to handle queries from business and other potential partners should the general and research contacts be unavailable. Consider this contact to be the QCQA, Quality Assurance and Quality Control. Please use plain language when completing the next 3 fields to make your technical information more easily understood by those who may not be familiar with your area of research. For what the facility does, the facility name should not be included, nor should a full sentence. Consider the examples provided. They are brief and speak to the facility's work in a few words. Human nutrition clinical studies, materials science and engineering, records music and dance performance. This text offers a quick glance of what the facility does to help visitors determine if the profile matches their needs before they click through to find out more. These 3 text fields should not repeat but complement each other, and the content should focus on the facility as a whole, not on specific researchers. For the areas of expertise, offer a concise overview of the research skills available in the lab. Write it in a way that will sell the facility. What makes it unique? What particular expertise sets the facility apart? List services offered by the facility. This can be either as a bulleted list, if including a list of services requiring no descriptions, or in paragraph form, if a few words of explanation are useful to explain each service. There are often fees associated with the use of research equipment and services. It is not expected that you will list specific numbers, as queries are usually individually evaluated. You might, however, wish to include a general note in your profile indicating that there is a cost to using your facility's research services and equipment, but this is optional. This is a tick list of areas of research for the facility. At least 1 area must be selected, and no more than 2. If the number of selections are other than 1 or 2, the intake form will be returned for a revision, as we are not in a position to select options for the facility. Identify sectors of application that can benefit the most from your research and with which you are collaborating or would like to collaborate. This field is used as one of the filters in the search engine to help users locate the expertise they need based on their sectors of interest. At least 1 sector of application must be selected, and we suggest selecting no more than 5 to help target search results. Over the next 3 slides, we will examine the specialized labs and equipment section and review some sample entries. Referring back to our earlier scenario of merging labs within the same facility under 1 profile, this is where they would be distinguished. Note that the column about the specialized lab can be left blank, as a name should only be included if other than the facility name. For the equipment in use, please list 1 piece of equipment per row. If a facility has several of the same piece of equipment, they can be listed together by simply adding the number of each before the name of the equipment, as the sample provided for Dionex. Note that while a short description of the function is useful and should be included if available, content for equipment in use is the only column requiring completion in this table. Let's review a few sample entries to examine content for this section in greater detail. The first 2 rows show existing entries in Navigator profiles. For the name of the equipment in use, check and confirm the exact spelling and capitalization. Include the manufacturer's name, model number, version, and spell out acronyms. In some cases, equipment has no such information, namely when custom built in the lab. It is perfectly acceptable to use general names in such cases. For example, 10-liter capacity experimental tanks. This is where the description of function field can be especially useful in adding detail. Looking at that 3rd column, based on the content of each profile, this can include detailed specs for the equipment or a description of its function in general terms. The maximum length of these fields is of 120 characters, including spaces, so descriptions must be brief and to the point. Looking at a few sample edited entries, ensure that the content provided matches the column header. Descriptions should not be part of the equipment name. All acronyms should be defined, included in parentheses after being written out. In the example, Thermal Analysis TA Instruments. Once defined in the section, an acronym can then be used instead of repeating the long form. Consider special cases and exceptions. Some acronyms are more generally known and commonly used than their long form, such as DNA. Either the term water or H2O can be used in a profile depending on the content. The term selected should then be used consistently throughout a profile. A list of partners can be included. That is a list of partners with which you have had a research collaboration. Funding partners should not be listed. The list can only include those you wish to mention, if any. Please ensure that you have their permission to post publicly. As for the format, content is in the form of a bulleted list. Do not include details of the partnership. List only names, not general groupings or descriptions. This section is to include hyperlinks to relevant websites, newspaper or magazine articles, or videos showcasing the facility, its researchers, or research. Keep titles short, within 120 characters, simple and descriptive, identifiable at a glance. This tip is especially relevant for scientific articles where titles can be quite long and unclear to non-scientific visitors of the site. Ensure consistency of format within the profile. If several articles are included, the order of the content under the title should be uniform throughout. For example, article name, publication and date should always be listed in that order, if that is what was used for the first. Hyperlinks should be checked. Ensure the links are active and not broken, and that they match the title. A few words on translation. Navigator follows the Government of Canada's Terminology and Linguistic Data Bank, Termium Plus. Titles should be translated even if they link to unilingual content, for example, news clippings, television interviews, or scientific articles. One link can be provided for each of the following social media platforms: YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. When provided, hyperlinked icons will display in the profile, as per the sample entry shown. If more than one link is available per platform, include the main link for the facility. Others can be included in the additional information section. Up to 3 logos can appear on a profile page. Content has been pre-filled in your templates for the first 2, the Government of Canada, and for your specific department or agency. A 3rd logo can be included if the facility itself has one. The file name must then be provided, along with alternative text, which we will examine in more detail on the next slide. Alternative text for logos is fairly straightforward. It consists of the text appearing in the logo. For the first sample provided, the alt text would be Nanofabrication Kingston, People, Ideas, Technologies. For the second logo, where no text appears on the image, the name of what it represents is added with the word logo. For example, the Beltran Gas Hydrates Research Group logo. The last page of this deck includes a link to the Treasury Board Style Guide on alternative text. Alt text will be discussed in more detail in the next section. Including images in a profile can make it especially appealing to site visitors and invite more click-throughs. Up to 10 images can be included in a profile, either in JPEG or PNG format. To properly display on the Navigator, file size should be less than 1 meg, ideally around 200 KB. Images should be submitted at the same time as the intake form. They can be included in the same email or submitted through a file sharing site, such as Dropbox. For each image, content for all 4 columns in the table is required: file name, caption, credit, and alternative text. We will next examine a sample entry to take a closer look at the content required for each image. The first column is reserved for the file name. For clarity, consider using a descriptive file name, such as the name of the equipment pictured, such as the example provided, Bruker Hyperion 3000. The caption should be provided by someone familiar with the content of the image, such as the contributor. Continuing with our sample entry, the caption reads, Lead researcher John Smith uses the Bruker Hyperion 3000 to examine tissue samples. The photo credit is the source or contributor of the photo. This can be a person, facility, lab, or department. Alternative text provides an alternative to non-text content in web pages and is used to describe the appearance and function of an image. It recreates the visual experience for someone who cannot view it, either due to accessibility issues or if it isn't displaying on a user's system for whatever reason. All text should not repeat the caption but complement it. All that in less than 140 characters. Our sample entry so far refers to a Bruker instrument, but someone unfamiliar will still not know what it is. The alt text, person views glass slide through a microscope, will help create a visual reference. Here we show an example where an image is so complex that describing it in alt text is a challenge. While we aim to provide descriptive alt-text content for all images, the term research infrastructure, infrastructure de recherche in French, can be used on occasion where it is difficult to describe an image in 140 characters beyond the information already provided in the caption. All images in this deck were sourced from the Navigator and provide some examples to help you build a great profile. A few more examples are provided here to show the appeal of infrastructure in use. Some facilities are unable to provide interior images of a lab or of certain pieces of equipment due to security or confidentiality issues. In such cases, consider using an external shot of the building or of images produced by research infrastructure, such as scans, measurements, charts, or maps.
We'll turn now to an overview of the onboarding process for research facilities. This is a schemata that provides the step-by-step process that research facilities and Navigator liaisons will go through in the onboarding of their research facility profile. In Step 1, the Government of Canada Navigator Liaison completes the Navigator contact field information on the English and French versions of their intake form and distributes them to the research facilities of their department or agency. In Step 2, the research facility is asked to complete one side of the intake form in either English or French and sends it to the Government of Canada Liaison for a first QA/QC review. And the liaison will ensure that the form is complete, the content follows the guidelines provided, and will confirm the facility is Navigator ready, that is, that they're ready to engage with external partners on collaborations and partnerships. If yes, the form is sent to the CFI coordinator for a second review. The coordinator confirms that the intake form meets guidelines. If it doesn't, it's returned to the liaison to address those issues with the research facility. If it does conform to guidelines, the Government of Canada liaison is then approved to send it to their translation department. When the translated form is returned, the liaison is asked to once again review the content to address any outstanding issues with respect to completion and adherence to guidelines. With everything looking good, the form is sent to the CFI coordinator for publishing. The CFI coordinator will publish the profile and confirm with the liaison that the posting is live. Some additional tips for a smooth onboarding process. Please follow the checklist provided at the end of this presentation. In the References and Resources section, you'll see a Navigator Profile Review checklist. It'll help you move your facilities through the onboarding process. Share what you've learned. Through this presentation and experience with onboarding other facilities, you will now be the in-house Navigator expert, and other facilities can benefit from that expertise. And finally, ask CFI. We are here to help you with any questions or concerns you might have. A few notes on next steps. Please check out the Navigator website at navigator.innovation.ca to get a feel for how content on the form actually comes together in an online profile. When you're sending your intake forms to the research facilities for completion, encourage them to do the same. We're suggesting you consider starting your first few profiles with facilities you're familiar with or believe are most Navigator ready. Develop a system to track the progress of facilities through the onboarding process and the number of contacts that they receive before any profile traffic begins in earnest. And please follow the distribution timing set by the FISTI for onboarding process.
A one-page checklist highlighting the items discussed in the intake form section of the presentation has been made available for your easy reference. This checklist will help you review a profile before submission to the CFI, ensure proper completion, and that all criteria are met. It will help you submit strong profiles and reduce the processing time before they are posted on the Navigator. I would like to draw your attention to the last point about submitting profiles once an intake form has been completed, then reviewed and finalized by the Navigator liaison. Each profile should be submitted by email to navigator@innovation.ca, one profile at a time. This means an intake form and its related images and logos should be sent in one email, but not multiple profiles at once. For the first few profiles, we ask that you wait to receive feedback on a submission before submitting any others or proceeding with translation. Use this feedback to review and edit any new profile before submission to reduce processing time. After going through the process on a handful of profiles, there should no longer be a need for draft versions and back-and-forth emails with edits before the translation stage. Final versions will then be submitted in both official languages in one step at first submission. This slide provides the link to the Treasury Board guidelines on alternative text as referenced earlier in this presentation.
This concludes CFI's presentation for Navigator Liaison Training and Orientation. Thanks again for your part in this role. Should you have any questions concerning what you've heard here, please don't hesitate to reach us at navigator@innovation.ca.